It is a continuation of the story. If you hadn't watched the previous chapter, go and watch them first to understand the story. Link in the description. Jay Chong was laughter echoed through the room, a cold, mocking sound. Ha ha ha! The Northern Heavenly General, for a name passed down by your lowly mother, he sneered, his words dripping with disdain. It's rather grand, he added, his tone laced with sarcasm. Chonghwa's response was swift and direct. Well, I don't have a lowly mother, he said, his voice calm, yet firm. Chonghwa's words cut deep, a swift riposte that left Jay Chong's face reddening with rage. But I do have an older brother with a rag in his mouth, he said, his tone laced with mockery. Jay Chong's eyes blazed with fury, and he snarled, You little, as he tried to pull out his sword, his hand moving with deadly intent. The old man's eyes snapped into action, and he swiftly intervened, his grip firm on Jay Chong's arm, restraining him from further escalation. Jay Chong's voice was venomous as he spat out the words. He will likely stay a patient from now on, his gaze never leaving Chonghwa's face. Don't try to stop. Just make sure the medicine is ready, he ordered the old man, his tone dripping with malice. Chong's voice was venomous as he spat out the words. He will likely stay a patient from now on, his gaze never leaving Chonghwa's face. Don't try to stop. Just make sure the medicine is ready, he ordered the old man. Chonghwa's words hung in the air, a subtle yet potent threat. You might end up being a patient, brother, he said, his tone light, yet laced with a hint of menace. The medicine had better be ready, yes? His eyes locked onto Jay Chong's, the challenge clear in his gaze. Jay Chong was thought-seated with fury, his mind racing with indignation. How dare you? He thought, his inner voice a torrent of rage. You lowly thing. He mentally spat, his anger and sense of superiority boiling over. His face reddened and his fists clenched, as if he was barely restraining himself from lashing out. The old man's hands rested gently on Jay Chong's shoulders, a calming presence that seemed to temper the young master's rage. Jay Chong's voice was still laced with anger, but he seemed to be exercising restraint. Fine. Since Master my UI insists, I will leave for today, he said, his words a reluctant concession. As Jay Chong would turn to leave, he suddenly leaned in close to Chonghwa, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Still, as your young brother, he hissed, the words laced with malice and threat. Chonghwa's senses prickled, and he felt a surge of murderous intent emanating from Jay Chong's gaze. Jay Chong's voice was low and menacing as he leaned in close to Chonghwa. I should give you at least one piece of advice, he whispered, his breath cold against Chonghwa's ear. A petty mouth can only babble if it stays intact, little brother. Chonghwa felt a sudden, intense pressure on his mind, as if Jay Chong's words had triggered a dark and malevolent force. Jay Chong's smile was a cold, calculated gesture, devoid of warmth or humor. I will see you next time, he said, his voice dripping with malice, if you're still in one piece. The words hung in the air like a promise of violence, a threat that seemed to reverberate through Chonghwa's very being. The old man's eyes widened in surprise as he thought, did first young master use a dark technique? His gaze flicked to Chonghwa, and he noticed the young man's subtle tensing, as if he had indeed felt something. The old man's thoughts were filled with a sense of dread as he considered the implications of Jay Chong's actions. Dark technique, a forbidden method of internal martial arts, allowed practitioners to imbue their malice into their opponent's body. Over time, this malice would wreak havoc on the opponent's internal systems, tearing muscles, bursting organs, and twisting veins, ultimately destroying the inside of their body. Chonghwa's thoughts turned confident as he thought, now I have the solar heart. A dark technique like first young masters will melt away easily. His eyes gleamed with a sense of assurance, as if the power of the solar heart had given him a significant advantage. The old man's expression turned disdainful as he said, Tisk, to think the grandson of the Lord of Dark Abyss is this petty. Chonghwa's response was swift and sharp, his words dripping with sarcasm. Then that Lord of Dark Abyss must be petty too. Chonghwa's expression turned grateful as he said, Still, it all ended well, thanks to my good master. The old man's eyes sparkled with amusement, and he replied, You didn't cause this mess believing in me, did you? Chonghwa's expression turned slightly weak as he said, I am still a patient, so I feel a bit dizzy. The old man's gaze softened, and he replied, Fine, anyway. That name, did your mother, S.A., really give it to you? His tone was gentle, with a hint of curiosity. Chonghwa's thoughts turned inward as he considered the old man's question, and he thought to himself, wouldn't it be better to just let them misunderstand? He seemed to be weighing the pros and cons of clarifying the truth about his name and its origins, and perhaps deciding that it would be easier to simply let the old man's assumptions stand. The old man's voice was laced with amusement as he said, Who? Tell everyone else that you've lost your memory. Lord Yahello thinks so too and left. Whatever you really lost it or not, I don't know. Chonghwa's response was brief. Understood. The old man's eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled. You answer well, at least. With that, he turned and left the room, leaving Chonghwa to his thoughts. The warm sunlight cast intricate patterns on the floor of the beautiful inner court, highlighting the serene atmosphere that pervaded the space. It had been 5 days since Chonghwa became a disciple. Chonghwa's thoughts turned to manhwa, a martial art that paired perfectly with the Ilwal Songshin, the sacred energy of the founding cult master of the sanctioned cult. His mind began to wander to the possibilities of mastering the life and death technique of Gukpi, a powerful method that would allow him to fully unleash the solar power within his solar heart. Chonghwa's thoughts grew more ambitious as he contemplated mastering the technique of life and death, and the possibilities that would unfold. If I master the technique of life and death, even the Dieramu will be possible, he thought, his mind racing with the potential of achieving the Washin Dieramu. The phrase, the martial path of 84,000 never betrays, echoed in his mind, a mantra that seemed to fuel his determination and conviction. The melody floated through the air, its gentle notes weaving a spell of nostalgia and longing. Chonghwa's thoughts turned to Master Yan, and he remembered the way the master would describe the Washin Dieramu. Yes, to me, Washin Dieramu was a dance performed by masters' whistles, he thought, a smile spreading across his face. The melody seemed to take on a new meaning, its rhythms and cadences evoking the vibrant energy of the dance. It was life, it was strength. As Chonghwa condensed his power, he thought, I still can't use powerful techniques, but some solar power is infused into each move. A sense of wonder and excitement seemed to dawn on him, as he realized that the solar heart's energy was subtly enhancing his movements. The joy of growing that I had forgotten, he thought, a smile spreading across his face. Chonghwa's body was enveloped in a fiery aura of red flames as he soared toward the sky, his movements swift and powerful. The flames danced around him, imbuing his form with an intense, crimson glow. As he landed, the red energy swirled around him, covering his body in a vibrant, pulsating aura. Chonghwa's thoughts turned introspective as he gazed within. I found a single speck of the dance's hidden perfection. A sense of satisfaction and wonder seemed to fill him, as if he had stumbled upon a long-lost treasure. Whether it's revenge or standing on my own, finding the martial arts form first, he thought, his mind focused on the path ahead. Chonghwa's determination seemed to burn brighter as he thought. I will conquer the solar heart and achieve Ilwal Songshin, the two supreme martial arts I failed to embrace in my past life. A sense of resolve and ambition filled his being, as if he was driven by a fierce determination to succeed where he had failed before. This time, I will claim them, he thought, his mind fixed on the goal of mastering these powerful arts. The voice from behind was laced with amusement. Quite the teasing, isn't it? Chonghwa turned to see who was speaking, and a hint of surprise, or perhaps even embarrassment, crossed his face. It's just a simple dance, he said, his tone casual, but with a hint of defensiveness. The figure's tone was playful, with a hint of skepticism. If you say so, I'll believe you. Their words seemed to imply that they didn't entirely believe Chonghwa's claim. The figure's eyes seemed to sparkle with curiosity as they asked, Is Jang Myong inside? Chonghwa replied that he had stepped out for a bit. The figure's gaze turned thoughtful, and they asked, Did Jang Myong tell you that there were a few moves here that looked decent? Their tone was casual, but their words carried a hint of insight, as if they knew something about the martial art that Chonghwa didn't. But without a core mental technique, it's just an empty shell of movement, they said, their words striking a chord within Chonghwa. Chonghwa thought to himself. He sensed there was something in Washin Dieramu quite perceptive. A sense of admiration seemed to rise within him, as he acknowledged the figure's keen insight. Maybe a top-level master, he thought, his estimation of the figure's abilities rising. The figure's eyes seemed to gleam with a mixture of curiosity and amusement as they asked, "Do you remember me?" Chonghua shook his head. "I do not." The figure's expression remained calm, but a hint of intrigue danced in their voice as they introduced themselves. "I am the Law Canon Lord of the Solar Divine Palace, Northern Warlord Ilseonkian." The title hung in the air, heavy with significance, and Chonghua's eyes. Chonghua introduced himself. "I am Wayu." Ilseonkian's gaze seemed to bore into him, their eyes gleaming with interest as they repeated the name. Wayu, the name of a martial god. Quite a good name. A hint of curiosity crept into their voice as they asked, "Did SUA give it to you?" Their words hung in the air, laden with an air of mystery and significance. Chonghua's thoughts turned calculating as he considered his next move. "Northern Warlord Ilseonkian, may I consider you an ally?" But before Ilseonkian could respond, he asked a more pressing question. "Is my name the issue here?" His eyes locked onto Ilseonkian's, as if seeking to understand the significance behind his words. Ilseonkian's eyes gleamed with a fierce intensity as they assumed a fighting stance, their movements economical and precise. "I won't use inner power," they declared, their voice low and even. "I'll only use my right hand." The words hung in the air, a challenge and a statement of intent all at once. Chonghua's thoughts turned to the impending duel, a martial duel. Not a bad opponent, but he seemed to be assessing Ilseonkian's skills and intentions, his mind working overtime to understand the motivations behind the challenge. "All I did was dance," he thought, a hint of puzzlement creeping into his expression. "You should at least tell me why you're rushing in." Ilseonkian's words were laced with a sense of gravity. Whether it's a dance or martial art, once you intend to harm others, it becomes a fine weapon. Their gaze seemed to bore into Chonghua's very soul, as if searching for any hint of malice or intent. "Master Sa, who has nothing, should at least have a shield," they said, their voice firm and resolute. "You will have to survive tonight, after all." The phrase "tonight" hung in the air, heavy with foreboding, and Chonghua's eyes narrowed slightly as he repeated the word, "tonight." Ilseonkian launched himself forward, his fist flying towards Chonghua in a swift and deadly strike. But Chonghua's body seemed to melt out of the way, his torso bending down in a fluid motion as he dodged the attack by a hair's breadth. Ilseonkian's eyes widened in surprise, his face twisted in a mixture of expectation and astonishment. He had clearly not anticipated Chonghua's speed and agility, and the fact that he had dodged the strike seemed to have caught him off guard. For a moment, Ilseonkian's massive calm composure slipped, revealing a glimmer of surprise and curiosity. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next chapter.